questions, ask them, then I'll ask Bruce, and he'll be able to answer those. So tonight, pertaining to the Hall of Fame Village, we have 3 ordinances in front of us. So I'll go over those 3 in the presentation. 2 of them we will be amending. 1 will be having a first reading, committee meeting on the floor, and then voting on it. So one of the ordinances that we're going to be voting on deals with PACE financing. So I want to go through, I'm going to give a quick rundown of PACE financing. The second ordinance we're going to be voting on pertains to a second TIF, and then go through what that means to the city, and then pick any questions. So let's start with PACE financing. What is PACE financing? PACE financing is private financing for energy efficient improvements. It is repaid through a property tax assessment, and because it's private financing, the city does not provide the loan. We do not guarantee the loan. We do not put city dollars into the loan. If they default on the loan, we are not subject to that. We have no exposure to PACE financing. So the impact on the city is no city funds or tax dollars are at risk. The city serves strictly as a pass-through, and that is a state law. Our involvement is strictly because the state law calls for us to act as this pass-through. During the life of the PACE financing, the city will collect administrative fees, and we do that on any PACE financing we do. Those administrative fees on this PACE financing would total, over its life, roughly $400,000. TIF financing. So what is a TIF? A TIF is tax increment financing. It captures new property tax revenue from a development. Only the increase or the increment in taxes is used, not the existing tax base. This provides funding for infrastructure or project support. So on this TIF, and this TIF is different because this is a second 30-year TIF, no existing tax dollars that would be due to the schools are lost. So they will get 100% of their share of taxes on the original value and the increased value. The developer is going to use future property taxes from the increment value to cover their project costs. But no tax dollars are lost to the schools with this second 30-year TIF. During our discussions with the Hall of Fame Village, we had 3 main project objectives. The first was to protect city loans, safeguard the loans made to the village if it defaults or faces bankruptcy. The second objective is to create additional return on investment for the city related to the Hall of Fame Village. The third is to support their success without having any additional cost to the city of Canton. So let's talk about the city's exposure to the Hall of Fame Village. The city's total exposure to the Hall of Fame Village is $8.5 million, and that's broken up into 2 different loans. A $3.5 million secured loan to the Doubletree Hotel.
Bless you.
And a $5 million unsecured infrastructure loan at Hall of Fame Village. The unsecured nature of the $5 million infrastructure loan means that it is likely at risk of being completely wiped out in the event of a bankruptcy. The term of this loan is a 20-year payback at 5% interest. So this administration, this council last year voted to increase the interest rate of one of these loans from, it was either 0 or 0.5% to 5%. But $5 million is still unsecured. So what are our requirements for, we'll start with the second 30-year TIF. So I want to really emphasize this point. The schools are exempt, and they will collect 100% of their money on the original and improved value. When we think of the 30-year TIF, we need to break it up into 2 pieces. First piece is estimated first 12 years of TIF revenue. Second piece is the estimated last 18 years of TIF revenue. So the first 12 years of TIF revenue, the developer will receive those first 12 years. During these 12 years, the developer will make semi-annual payments of $41,190.97 to the city. This takes into consideration the amount of money that our park system and the city itself lose loses when there is TIF financing or TIF done on a project. Over the first 12 years, those payments will total estimated $988,583.28. After year 12, and estimated after year 12, the city will receive all the TIF revenue for the remaining years. So that total estimated, and I have underlined estimated because TIFs are based on property taxes. Property taxes are based on property valuations in village. And we are projecting far in the future. So there is unknowns to what property values will and won't be, and what village will and won't be. But a rough estimate of that would be those last 18 years would be worth about $6 million. So by passing this TIF legislation, it will cost the city of Canton nothing and generates an estimated $7 million, again, subject to property values in village.
I love how $1.5 million is nothing.
That $7 million estimated money is money that today, without a second, third year TIF, the city of Canton would not be received. On the PACE financing, so the city of Canton will collect administration fees for being the pass-through on the PACE financing. Those administration fees will be about $427,000 over 25 years. There is a board called the ESID board. They will also receive admin fees, and those admin fees will total $850,000 over 25 years. Part of the formation of the ESID, it requires city officials to sit on that. The mayor and myself are members. It is our objective, and we have received signals that this won't be impossible, to get the other $850,000 of admin fees that the ESID is collecting, transferred over to the city for us to use on qualified uses. So the city benefit to passing the PACE financing is pretty much guaranteed $400,000 with the possibility of generating up to $1.2 million. Key points of this: it costs the city nothing. We serve only as a pass-through. It does not increase the city debt. There is no exposure to litigation. Does not affect current or future tax collections for the city or others. So keep in mind the $5 million unsecured loan for these discussions. So on the first reading ordinance that we have in front of us, deals in allowing the mayor to enter into an agreement for a 1% resort fee. So the 1% resort fee, what does it do? It establishes a 1% resort fee charged to hotel and water park customers. Applies that 1% resort fee would be transferred to the city of Canton in the event that the HOF Village defaults on paying us back the $5 million or goes into bankruptcy. This ensures repayment of the city's $5 million unsecured debt. How does it work? Rather than being tied to the HOF Village, it is tied to the land. And this applies regardless of who owns and operates the hotel or water park. This will function as an insurance policy against bankruptcy, and it creates a dedicated revenue stream that is being pledged to paying the $5 million back to the city in the event of a default or bankruptcy. Why it matters? Because it protects the city's unsecured investment. It adds no cost to the taxpayers, and it close to guarantees at some point repayment, even in the worst case scenarios. So our path to making sure that the taxpayers are made whole. Again, our total exposure, $8.5 million at risk, $5 million unsecured, $3.5 million secured. So the $3.5 million is a secured loan with the DoubleTree Hotel. The secured status offers some protections, not perfect protections, but some protections to the city in the event of a bankruptcy. By passing the PACE financing, we will collect $427,000 of admin fees and potentially up to $1.2 million of PACE admin fees. We will collect the last 18 years of the 30-year TIF, estimated, again, subject to property values and millage, potentially $7 million collected that today we would not be. And finally, it establishes the 1% resort fee that creates a dedicated revenue stream to be pledged to paying the city back if a bankruptcy or default occurs. So what happens if we don't pass this? From every indication that we can get from the HOF Village, it is likely that the project will go bankrupt. The city impacts, if there's a bankruptcy, $3.5 million secured loan is only partially recoverable in a bankruptcy. The $5 million unsecured loan is likely wiped out. Other impacts, Stark County Commissioners, I believe, have a $5 million unsecured loan that is likely to be wiped out. And local foundations and charities also have money in this project likely to be wiped out. If this passes, can bankruptcy at the HOF Village still happen? Yes, bankruptcy is still possible. However, the city will have a much stronger protection for the taxpayers with these provisions in place. There will be multiple paths to recoup the full $8.5 million, and it reduces risk of loss compared to doing nothing. So that is the end of my slideshow. If anybody has any questions, Bruce is on the phone. He can give answers. And Bruce, I imagine you were able to hear that. Do you have anything to add before we take some questions?
No, I heard everything on that, and again, I'm open if there are any questions from anyone there.
Question. Member Morris.
On the hotel, that 3.5 is secured. Who's in front of us in the line, and what percentage of the 3.5 could we potentially collect? And if they don't go bankrupt, what's the interest rate on the 3.5?
Bruce, did you hear that question, or do you need me to repeat it?
No, I think I heard it. I think the question is that it's a secured loan, and can we estimate what percentage of that we could, expect to recover if there was a bankruptcy? Is that correct?
Yes, and then what the interest rate would be moving forward then on, or what is the interest rate on it?
Current interest rate.
Current interest rate is 5%. But Bruce, if you can.
Yeah, I can discuss on the bankruptcy piece. Even though we're secured, we are in a subordinate position, and I'm looking for not the current, but the original principal balance on the first loan, and I want to say that was in the vicinity of $15 million. So at least, I don't know what the current balance is, but at least at its inception, that loan, which has the first mortgage interest, was approximately 5 times greater than our loan. So the issue really then becomes availability of funds in the event of liquidation. So I think it's fair to say that we are likely to receive partial recovery, but once again, it really depends upon the value of the property at a liquidation sale, and we are second to a significant amount of loan.
Member Morris, does that answer your question? Bruce, Member Morris is saying that you didn't hear dollar amounts and
Percentage, do we recoup 15% of our money? Do we get 50% of our money? If they go belly up tomorrow and they have to sell off the hotel, all I heard was there's $15 million ahead of us, and do we have a market value? Is the property worth $12 million? And everybody loses. Do we get a percent based on the equity we put in compared to the equity they put in?
did you hear that, Bruce?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
So I unfortunately, I do not have a market value for the recent appraisal or any appraisal for the value of the hotel. In answering the second part of your question, it is not it's not going to be a prorated split. I mean, we'll be in the pool of creditors, but we're not necessarily going to be drawing down, 1/3 of the balance. So again, what will happen is, and again, I can't say for certainty, but in the ordinary course, the lender will look at the value of the property and then move to have relief from the automatic stay. If it stayed in the bankruptcy, then we could participate pro rata, but in all likelihood, the lender will look at the value depending upon that value, assuming there's no equity for the estate, the lender would then ask for relief. If that relief is granted, then that mortgage would be foreclosed in the ordinary course outside of bankruptcy, in which case the prior lien holder, in this case, Erie, would recover first after all taxes were paid, after all court costs were paid, and then only after that lien was satisfied would we, be entitled to our share. I know that was kind of a convoluted answer, but at the end of the day, if it stays in the bankruptcy, we could share pro rata as a secured creditor, but the likelihood of that happening would depend upon the value of that property exceeding, let's just say, roughly $18 million.
Thank you, Bruce. Any other questions that Bruce can answer?
Yeah, Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, member G-Basis.
When this loan was, at the inception of this loan, the value of the village or the assets of the village dramatically changed over the last 5-6 years. The fields, the dome, several of the other assets there at the village have been sold off. When you're estimating the market value of the village as it currently exists, what percentage is left compared to what it was at the inception of the loan? Because several parts of this have been sold to private holders.
Bruce, did you hear that?
I'm sorry, I did not, I apologize.
At the inception of this loan, Bruce, the value of the village.
Excuse me, if we can, please have it quiet out there so we can get through this.
The value of the village when the loan, at the inception of the loan, is dramatically different today because several parts of a lot of the assets there at the village have been sold off to private holders. What percentage is left today compared to what it was at the inception of that loan? Example, the dome's been sold off, the football fields have been sold off to private entities. What's left?
Bruce, what he's asking is
Yeah,
you heard it?
yeah, I did.
Okay.
Well, and I guess I want to answer it this way. Again, we've got two loans from the village. The hotel loan is secured, and so the valuation of any of the properties in the Hall of Fame Village area, the dome or the student or athletic fields, is really irrelevant to our security position as it relates to the $3.5 million loan. Now, as it relates to the $5 million loan, we are unsecured, so we would then fall in a pool of all other unsecured creditors. The value of the property in the village is relevant to that because you have to look at what liquidated values would be, and so certainly disposition of those properties reduces the value, reduces the property available to the debtor in trying to satisfy its debts. But it really doesn't have any relevance to the hotel loan, which is secured. And again, the only relevance is, we would form an unsecured group for the $5 million loan, and presumably what happened was, a large portion of the revenue from those sales has either been utilized to pay existing debt or operating expenses. And so, again, reduction in the value of the real estate just hurts our ability to collect as an unsecured creditor.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Yes, member second.
What is their total debt right now with the village?
Bruce, did you hear that? The question was.
I think it was, their total debt?
Yeah, for total,
I don't have that information.
Yeah, and I think-
Not in front of me, I don't know.
I think with the going from public to private, that is something that is in flux. So, any other questions?
Yes, got a question.
Yes, member Morris.
So, leave it to me not to pay much attention to something I don't really care about, which is the Hall of Fame. The dome and the student fields were sold off. Does that property still fall under this TIF?
since it was in that TIF area, and then they turned around and they sold off the property to pay off their debts, does that property still sit in the TIF? And who's collecting the TDD on that money?
So yes, it would still sit within the TIF. And Bruce, jump in if I say anything incorrect. It does still sit within the TIF. Remember, Marsh, you asked about the TDD revenue, correct? The TDD revenue from those? That TDD revenue would flow based on I believe it's the operations and maintenance and development agreement. So it flows to HOF Village. Any other questions? Mayor, anything to add to this before we close it?
Just a few remarks. Myself and the majority leader have thoroughly tried everything we can to protect the city. And when I say this, when you think about the agreements that were in place prior to myself getting here, I wanted the majority leader to take the lead on this, and when we talked about this, when Frank and Chris, we had our meeting before council. I want to make sure that nobody's in a vacuum and everybody is fully aware. But one thing that I want to be very clear is, I don't work for the village. I work for the taxpayer of the city.
Okay. All right. If there's any more outbursts, this is the one warning. One more interruption, one more outburst, and we ask to leave. I want to make that very clear. This is not public speech. Sir, if you do not stop, I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
Freedom of speech.
I'm going to have to ask you to leave if you do not stop. Mayor, please continue.
So, having said that I want to make sure that the $8.5 million that the city agreed to give the village, I want to make sure that we have a path to get our money back, and that is the bottom line. When you think about what you can do with $8.5 million, we're going after 2 neighborhoods this year, picking 2 neighborhoods next year. We could do 7 neighborhoods with that 8.5. We could build 2 new fire stations with that 8.5 million. We could do a lot of good in the city. But it's still different than the conversations we had about Hercules. That moving forward, we need to make sure that whatever the city does, it helps individuals with economic development. If the city's going to get their investment moving, if the city's going to make the investment, the city's going to make sure that they're going to get their return on their investment. And this is just one step. And I also want to be very clear, right? If they do file bankruptcy, yeah, there is a chance, there's a very, very good possibility everybody's going to get wiped out. But if they can't build it, and they can be successful, that gives us a path to get our money back. But there's going to be more than just a night with the HOF Village coming back to council. They are going to have to come back, and they are going to have to approve the TIF bonds if council does approve this, okay? For the construction, because it's going in phases. And when they come back, we have to have more serious conversations about a compensation agreement. Number one, to make sure that Canton Parks can be made whole. But also, we want to, just to be mindful about our schools. It is very important that our schools, it is going to be very important that our school systems, which are both Plain and Kansas City, are made whole also. So we are asking for your support on this tonight.
Okay. Is there any other questions anyone has? If not, we will conclude this and then we'll get the meeting started. Thank you. Bruce, I appreciate you being on the call. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you, Bruce.